Hey, what's going on everyone? Vega here for Serpent Tech, and in this video we'll be taking a look at this Futurebit Apollo II. We're trying to tear it down because ever since lightning hit a number of my systems, including the Futurebit Apollo, you can see the little burn mark on the Ethernet connector. The system, this thing will still mine. Like, I can see it on the doctor's pool, and I'm glad I was on the doctor's pool, because if I was mining through my own solo node at the time lightning hit, I wouldn't be able to mine at all. We could also connect to it externally through HDMI, keyboard, and mouse, and I can see the OS. And while it mines and it hashes at the hash rate that I have it set at, I just can't talk to this thing. I can't connect to it over the network, even though it's connected over Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet. You can see there's no lights going on in the control board here, this little Raspberry Pi board right here. I just want to get this thing back to life, and we already have the replacement board. So let's switch over to the computer and get the new board installed on this Futurebit Apollo II. Don't forget the Apollo 3 is coming out, and I got that pre-ordered, so stay tuned for updates on the channel once I get my hands on that guy. Alright, so here we are. We got the Futurebit Apollo, and if you're not familiar, the Futurebit Apollo miners allow you, they come in two forms, standard and full node. This is a full node that allows us to sync the entire Bitcoin blockchain and mine through our own node locally or externally. You can do it via network. We've done a number of videos on the channel showing you how to connect external sources to mine through your own node as well as internal. Now this comes in a beautiful case, as you can see here with my greasy fingerprints. We got the heatsink on the back, as well as I'm seeing two screws right here and here, power. And then right underneath the power is the control board we need to get to. Here is the replacement one. This is an Orange Pi 4, I believe 4GB version. And if you look, everything matches up just like that or something like that. And we need to get to it. I have instructions I will share with you down in the description. But first things first, we need to get this NVMe drive off that I'm going to replace with a 2TB version. It's going to take a minute to sync up that entire blockchain again, but Bitcoin's blockchain is getting that big. And usually when you're mining with a full node, if you prune the blockchain, it can cause issues with applications. So in this case, we want to store the entire blockchain. But you can see, not only looking through the heatsink, we could see the fan back there, but you can also see underneath, we could see the heatsink right here next to the NVMe drive, and then the control board we need to get after. So take these off. And then after that, we're going to remove these 4 padded feet where we're going to have 4 screws. One of them is going to be a Torx, which is why I got my iFixit kit. I have exposed the screws, and you can see that's a normal Phillips. Well, this one is a Torx. So just make sure you got the right tool for the right job. You do not want to strip these things. And we need to take off this NVMe drive first. Looks like that Torx is a TR10, but now we can go ahead and very carefully lift this up. We need to take notice of where everything is connected. There's going to be some ribbon cables and stuff, so let's just be very careful. All right, I'm going to rotate this over so you can see. Let me get you a better shot if I can. I'll zoom in and post if possible. Now the screws are still in here. I don't want these to drop in there, but you can see the control board, the little fan on it. The one I got doesn't come with a fan, so I'm going to have to remove that over, place that over. We got some connections here. Let me get this disconnected first and we'll try to show you. But that's hot glued. We got some power cables going down to this little, I think what I can call a bus bar, as well as a communications cable right here, multicolored. Let me get this unplugged safely. All right, there we go. So this connector right here, there's red and black connector, looks like it's providing us power while we're getting our data connections right here. Looks like an orange, yellow, green, and blue. Both of those are already connected on the new control board, as you can see here. Need to move the heatsink over, and we also need some Kapton tape to push down this wire. This black thing right here, we need to tape down, because look at how it's taped down on the packaging, right? So it routes around and it's taped down with some Kapton tape, which I have. I make sure to grab that. Where I've disconnected these two, so right here, right underneath this black, I guess you can say ground connection, your red's your power, there is a little connector. You could barely see it right here. That's where I unplugged that first 2 pin red and black wire. And then right here is where the data connection is. Now you can see internally the power supply. Power supply is at the top of your screen. Can't really see any model names from what you guys are looking at, but I'll take a look. You can see how it's wired up to the power port on the back here. And then here is the giant heatsink. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heat pipes in this gigantic, what I would consider a server grade cooler. And then the fan right in front of that. So it's basically sucking air from all the orifices it can do. And it's blowing out the back here. So sucking air from the top vents that you can see and the vented area below, all the ambient air, and it's pulling it through this fan, which you can see is a little dusty, and then pushing it out the front. So I'll try to clean that up a bit, but that is basically it. This entire silver section is a gigantic shell. We got some hot glue in here to hold some things together in a nice press, like, you know, tight fit. And that heatsink, by the way, is on the main control board. If you want to know where all your hashing power is, it is right here. This very thin piece down the middle. That is what the heatsink is hanging on to. You can see the back plate, that silver thing right here that I'm pointing at. That's the back plate holding that heatsink on to keep those chips nice and cool, and obviously to give it, you know, somewhat decent thermals. I know we could replace the thermal paste on this thing if we really wanted to, but we're not going to get much gains if we did that. And the amount of work it would take to get all the way down in here, because look at this, the individual bus bars is going to be the hard part. So if I could show it to you, I want you to look right down here. Go follow that black wire down, and you're going to see the individual bus bars. You see that? Those are all soldered. They're screwed into soldered connections that provide power to each of those chips. Looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4 total. Then that's connected to the power supply, as well as what looks to be a daughter board or a power distribution board, which is where the red and black are connected to. So you got a power distribution board or control module, right, that's taking power from the power supply and then efficiently distributing it to the chips and various components. So I'm going to clean this out real quick. We got that done. Now it's just simply replacing the heatsink onto the new control board. So I'll get some thermal paste for that. And then some Kapton tape to make sure we hold down everything. Now, the biggest note here, advised to me by our colleagues at Futurebit, is that we need to be careful about the orientation where the ribbon cable is. So this little guy right here, very important, right? That is controlling, if you look, your NVMe connection right here. So we do not want to mess up any of our connections whatsoever. Orientation is important, all that good stuff. So we're going to be very careful to do that. And we got to get the SD card out. It's very hard to see, but if you look at this tape right here, that's the SD card. I need to take that out first. So I'm just going to lift up this Kapton tape ever so slightly, pull that sucker out, and then disconnect the ribbon cable very carefully, which if you look, it just has a simple little black connector on it right here that we just got to pry up ever so gently and then lift that ribbon cable up. Quick update. I already disconnected the ribbon cable and took out the micro SD card, which houses your OS. So if you ever wanted to update your operating system, that's where you can do it. Their fourth screw actually runs through. It's that Torx screw we were talking about that runs through this board. So be very careful. Don't just yank it out, but be very careful to try to get this. It's kind of like a standoff technically, right? So we can very gently lift this guy up and off that screw. And then that's your bottom plate that I'm going to clean up. And then here is the old control board which houses all our connections. You could see where this data connection or data communication possibly cable, somebody correct me what that is, where it actually terminates onto the Pi 4. Everything's already provided to us because we ordered this from Futurebit directly. But if you didn't and you just got the orange Pi 4, right, if you wanted to, go ahead and take a picture, pause screen, whatever you need to do, and you know where they're getting their power from, the data communication, Wi-Fi connection, which the orange Pi already has. If you look right by the NIC, has a little antenna spot. Same thing that you're used to on your laptops. So right now we just need to swap over this heatsink. In order to do that, got the heatsink off, and it's just mounted with what looks like some thermal pads and some thermal tape, right? So the thermal tape, this carbon looking side, goes on this main chip right here. And then you have two memory modules at the very, very bottom. So we're going to mount that. There's no screws holding it on or anything like that. We're just going to mount that just like it was on the new board. And then get this guy reinstalled in the exact same way or configuration. All right, so here we have the new control board with the heatsink applied. Again, using a little bit of heat just to warm it up so it could adhere. Now we got to make sure this antenna is routed correctly. We got our fan plugged in, and we got to get these two connections on, but we got to get this all back on to the main, like the bottom plate, I guess you could say, and reconnect the ribbon cable. So if we look very carefully, I'm moving the ribbon cable out of my way. I'm sliding this back down into its spot. And so looking at this, somehow the antenna should go, I just twisted it a little bit, but the antenna should go route this way to go underneath the captain tape that's right here. So I'm going to do that and then tighten everything up or screw it back in. By the way, if you want to replace the NVMe controller or the board, the daughter board, I think you could find those somewhere. The screw holes on the bottom here got some tape on it. But if you're doing this much to your Futurebit Apollo, you're not planning on warrantying it. And I'm not even sure. I think Futurebit has warranties, but I never really looked deep into that. So I'm just going to finish wrapping this up, and I'll bring you back for when we go to plug it in. A couple things, though, that I thought was really cool about this design is if you look, okay, follow this black cable, right? It goes to that same bus bar, and it's kind of like a grounding strap for the back plate of this board. So when lightning hit the house, it took out the NIC, but this guy survived it. It's a little bit beefy. It's a little tiny, and it's amazing what they could do to fit all of this in this tiny package. If we look, we got two screws up here, right? You got two screws on the back side here. And if you look at it, or if you were here with me looking at it, it looks like this entire assembly kind of slides down. Like they connected the hash board right here to the, power distribution board where all the bus bars and everything are connected. And then they slid this. They had the power supply in there, giving them room to access the screws, because there's no way you're getting a flathead in there, even if you had a stubby. They connect the power supply first in this container, which I believe is aluminum, and this entire assembly, the main hash board, the power distribution board, the heat sink, the fan, is all made or assembled outside of this package and then slid down. And then you got these two main connections for the red and the black to provide power to the whole thing. Because if you look, this board, it's not really mounted anywhere. At least I'm not seeing any mounts. There's a bit of some plastic, probably like resistant material to avoid electrical connectivity between the aluminum and the back of this power distribution board. And I could be saying the name of the board wrong. It might not be a power distribution board, but it looks like it to me, because you got the bus bars connected to it, those two main connections leading off of the power supply connected to it, and then it connected to the hash board. But that's not connected to the chassis, and this whole entire assembly up top just kind of slides into it, which I just think is unique and pretty cool. I look forward to seeing what the Apollo 3 looks like or is set up as. Anyways, taking up enough of your time, I'm going to mount this. Chaining out this control board is not hard. If you didn't have to talk like I did, maybe 15 minutes. I did clean up a little bit, but now I'm going to get everything reconnected. The ribbon cable. See, I have nails, and so people make fun of me because of my nails, but in this case, that little black connector was very easy to pry up with my pointer fingernail. It's not super long, but it's long enough to get underneath there and very carefully, you know, pry up enough so I can release the ribbon cable. All right, and now the dance. We got to get this guy plugged in to our connection right underneath that black cable, and then our data connection plugged in right here. All right, power's plugged in, making sure it's seated all the way. And now carefully flip this guy over, and we gotta somehow, it's kind of got a memory, so it kind of wants to bend a certain way. But there we go. All right, communications in, boards in. Didn't put the SD card back in yet. I can do that from this side, but I just want to make sure that everything is going to sit where it wants to sit. Okay, something is giving me a little bit of resistance here. What is giving me resistance is that power cable. Okay. So can we route that a different way? That is the question. Don't forget to put your little feet back on. I'm going to wait because I don't want to put anything back on until I confirm this is working. It's kind of like leaving the side panel on your computer case off, but we got the NVMe drive installed, everything good to go. Going to take this right next to us and plug it in. All right, I got it set up on the old Hyper 212 box. I even got the HDMI cable plugged in. Everything in the back is plugged in. Because I mean, the whole point of this was to make sure that this NIC works, because this NIC would not light up whatsoever. So let's power it on and see what happens. It's going to get really loud real quick, but then it calms down. We got NIC lights. That's awesome. Looking good so far. Got an internal light on the M.2 as well. Internal light on the M.2 NIC lights. That's good. What do we got in the front? We got lights up front. Good, good, good. All right. Does this thing light up? All right, let's see what happens. But everything is looking good so far. And now we got the blinking white light, which is what we should get. I found something though. Let me show you. So I swapped out the connector because if you look very carefully at this orange wire, it's kind of pulling out a bit on one of the ends right here. It's almost like it's not pinned all the way, right? You see it popping out, that gold. It's almost like it wasn't pinned all the way. The connector still works, but I noticed that. So I swapped out the old ribbon cable, or the old, not ribbon cable, but the old cable to the machine, and we booted up. But I did have a second there where the fans wouldn't ramp down, which told us there was something wrong. So I'm just going to repin this properly, and then I still have a proper connector. But just something to note, you see how you can see the gold in those, but then that one's recessed, kind of like what we saw with the 12 volt high power from NVIDIA and stuff like that. It's just not pinned in all the way. No biggie, but just something for you to be cautious about if you get your replacement control board and need this cable. That needs to be pinned in. And just like that, it's fixed. I guess it might have moved during shipping, but now that orange cable is not coming out no matter how hard I pull, which is good. So this cable will work just fine. I just swapped it out with the old. They're doing the same thing. Now we need to make sure we can log in and access it. And we are still up and running on the Futurebit Apollo. We're showing around 7 terahash on the 1 minute, 5.2 on the 5 minute, and one day is about 5.89. We're seeing it both at the doctor's pool and on the network. If I go to the network right now, there it is, Futurebit Apollo 2. It did give it a different IP because we switched out control boards, obviously. But we are hashing away and reconnecting the pools and stuff like that. There's a little bit of troubleshooting I'm going to need to do, but that's going to do it for today's video. That is how you replace the control board on your Futurebit Apollo 2 miner, full node. The standard nodes, I don't think they have something similar to this, but yeah, the control board is very easy to replace. Orange Pi 4 GB. There's the memory disks or the memory chips if you're interested in knowing what they are. And yeah, do me a favor on the way out. Hit that like button, make sure to get subscribed, hit the notification bell to stay up to date, as well as check out additional links in the description to help support the channel and what we do here. This cable's fixed. My Apollo 2 is back up and running and hashing with the replacement control board. And look at this. If you look down into the NIC, you can see the burn mark. You see that kind of bluing back there? That's where it fried. So this control board still works, and we could probably repurpose it, but that NIC is shot out. The only way we're going to connect to it is via Wi-Fi, unfortunately. But have yourself a great day. We'll catch you guys later on. It's good to have the Futurebit Apollo 2 back up and running. A little troubleshooting I need to do, but we'll follow up in a different video. Take care.